Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub. I'm Tony Lyons, president of MAHA Action. Last week, MAHA showed the world what it means to unite in a movement that puts ideals into action through historic policy reform. MAHA Action was proud to host the Eat Real Food Rally in Austin. This event brought together health leaders, policymakers, everyday Americans, and passionate advocates to champion real whole foods, metabolic health, and the urgent fight against chronic disease. Callie Means put our ongoing efforts into perspective when he said, 20 years from now, we're going to have much lower rates of chronic disease. And we're going to look back on today and what's happened, and we're going to see that society now, that what's happened is a disgrace. We can do better. I have no doubt that we're making history. The fight against chronic disease is the fight of this generation, and it's one that we have to win. Last week, we also separated fact from fiction on the president's glyphosate executive order. This week, as he promised, Secretary Kennedy, along with Secretary Rollins and Administrator Zeldin, launched a game-changing initiative to end our national addiction to glyphosate. This is the best development on this front in decades, and here's what it'll do. $100 million for advanced research projects for health and to identify new, innovative, and cost-effective technologies that reduce our reliance on chemical crop protection tools in order to improve human health. $100 million more as a grand prize challenge from the NIH for researchers to identify creative solutions for evaluating the exposure, diagnosis, and treatments of cumulative chemical exposures on individual health. And then $30 million more as a grand prize from the EPA to research cost-effective alternatives to pre-harvest desiccation use of pesticides. And then $840 million from the USDA to expand regenerative farming. And that's just beginning now, but that can go much further. And all of this is just a first step towards actively getting rid of glyphosate in this country. We know it's a carcinogen, we know it's caused cancer, and we know we have to off-ramp it. So MAHA's voice was heard. Secretary Kennedy, as always, has our back. He has everyone's back. And the administration is putting hundreds of millions of dollars towards digging us out of the glyphosate hole. But we have to remember that our voices transcend policies. We also have to remember that there are going to be setbacks, but that we have the opportunity to reverse 50 years of corruption in the next 3 years if we can stick together and stay focused. Secretary Kennedy said it best when he told the Austin audience, I recognized that it would give me actual real power to make these kinds of changes, to push for these kinds of changes. For the last year, President Trump has let me go up against big pharma, big food, big insurance, big hospitals, and all of those other untouchables. So we're moving forward, but these are very tough battles. And we, as the MAHA movement, won't ever give up. Now we have to take the fight to the Supreme Court. Justices will soon hear arguments in Monsanto versus Durnell. John Durnell is the man who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after using Roundup for 20 years. And this has been true of so many others. And a jury of his peers found Monsanto liable. So it's vital that we make our voices heard to the court. If Bayer Monsanto gets their way, state regulators will be prohibited from putting accurate warning labels on products like glyphosate, while people like John Durnell will effectively be prohibited from seeking justice before a jury in state courts, even when they face a terminal illness like he does. So MAHA can never support liability shields, not for pesticides, not for vaccines, and not for any other product. But we're always open to dialogue and debate, to engaging with all stakeholders to get the job done and to come up with better answers. So in this case, though, making matters worse and more complicated, the Department of Justice filed a brief in support of Monsanto. But this is why MAHA is here. This is why we exist, to raise awareness when mistakes are made. And this is one such mistake. The brief does not match the long-held views of both Secretary Kennedy or President Trump. And our job then is to help this incredible administration not be swayed by the same corrupt forces that got us here in the first place. This is just going to be a constant battle, but one that I think that MAHA and the Trump administration can win together. And then there's a similar battle unfolding with the House Farm Bill. We need to support the newly proposed Amendment 51, which would strike provisions that double down on a system built around ultra-processed food, pesticide-intensive monocultures, and diminished local oversight of what ends up in our water and air. In every one of these fights, MAHA wants to obtain a better outcome. Maybe not a perfect one, but one that's better, one that goes further toward protecting the American public. And again, I'm convinced that we can win these fights, that we can off-ramp dangerous chemicals and move towards a regenerative farming future, because we have a MAHA administration and a MAHA president, and we have Secretary Kennedy, who all believe in common sense, practical ways to solve these problems. I cannot wait, though, until another great mind of the MAHA movement, Dr. Casey Means, is confirmed as our next Surgeon General. And I encourage all of you to call your senators and tell them that you want to see Dr. Means confirmed as soon as possible so she can get to work helping us end the chronic disease epidemic in this country. As Surgeon General, I have no doubt that she'll lead the charge towards empowering Americans to take control of their health, like Secretary Kennedy says, to become CEOs of their own bodies, reforming outdated guidelines and transitioning from processed food to real food, from a reliance on drugs and treatment to a focus on root causes and prevention, and ensuring a healthier future for our children and our grandchildren. Let's make her confirmation happen as soon as possible. Let's make it possible so that we can accelerate the MAHA revolution. Today, we have an incredible lineup of MAHA leaders. We'll be joined by Ron Johnson, the U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, Dr. Mehmet Oz, Zach Lane, Republican candidate from governor, Marla Maples, Sean Spicer, and with our regular contributors, Gary Brecka, Russell Brand, and Dr. Eric Berg. We'll also be introducing a new topic to the MAHA Media Hub, biological dentistry. And we're going to be joined by two leading voices in that field, Dr. Shawn and Dr. Ben Javid. First up, let's welcome Senator Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson has been at the forefront of the MAHA movement from before there was a MAHA movement. He was one of the first in the federal government to question the failed COVID response and to give voice to the hundreds of thousands who were injured by COVID vaccines. He's also held historic hearings and roundtables like the American Health and Nutrition Roundtable in September 2024, and addressing many of the healthcare shortcomings that are being corrected by Secretary Kennedy and the Trump administration. Welcome, Senator Johnson.
Well, first of all, Tony, thanks for having me, and thanks for all of your efforts. Before I forget, or so I don't forget, Dr. Pierre Corey, I think you're probably familiar with him, asked me to write a blurb for his new book. I'm not sure whether you're publishing it or not, but it's called The Blueprint of Life. And I'd recommend everybody in this audience, because you're looking for alternatives to glyphosate. This is talking about a certain kind of volcanic rock that can be utilized. Again, you have to read the book. It's extremely interesting. So I just had to point that out. I was amazed by the book. It's a completely different type of thing. It's a scientific and spiritual journey for Dr. Corey, and it's an interesting read. But again, The Blueprint of Life. But let me start out by saying I started out my morning here speaking for about a half hour to a group called the National Food Policy Conference here in Washington, D.C., and I didn't mean to, but I probably offended about half the audience. I didn't realize how many either current or former federal agency employees were in the audience. And what in my opening comments, and it was opened up to questions and answers, basically I laid out my history in terms of how I got involved, in the MAHA movement, which really culminated in that event in September of 2024. But before that, as Chairman of Homeland Security, I was holding hearings on COVID, on the lack of early treatment, on, again, the injection injured. And what that did for me and for so many other people, it opened our eyes to the capture and corruption of the federal agencies, of our news media, of scientific journals, of academia. And, So we isolate that. We saw that in our medical establishment with COVID, but then just broaden that to big food, big agriculture. And so people have to understand how big business, and I come from the private sector, I have no problem with big business, but I have a problem when big business uses their power to capture federal agencies, turn the regulations in their favor to the disadvantage of smaller competitors, and certainly to the detriment of consumers and to ordinary American citizens. And so we have to awaken to that reality and understand the powerful interests all of us are up against. These folks are not going to go quietly into the night. As Bobby pointed out in his long post on glyphosate, you have to recognize the reality. You're not going to get rid of it overnight. And so I'm really heartened to hear the programs of putting money toward hopefully high integrity research. And it starts there. We need to restore integrity to scientific research. Right now, it is under assault. Again, it's being bought and paid for by a lot of these big companies. Peer review is a joke. You also often have peer reviewers who are out to basically degrade, destroy research that's contrary to theirs. You've got researchers that can't get individual independent review panels. There's one doctor that is really being persecuted right now, Wafik El-Diri, an eminent oncologist from Brown University. He published a paper looking at over 300 cases of cancer, and he showed the plausible mechanism of how the COVID injections cause that cancer. His own medical journal was then had numerous denial of service attacks to it. He is coming under attack. All of his previous research is being questioned by people like Elizabeth Bick and what they call pub smear, but pub peers. So again, we have to recognize people in this movement, the powerful interests we're up against, the corruption that people don't want to, the general public, they didn't want to find out that the mRNA injection was dangerous. They don't want to think that these federal health agencies are captured and that they're corrupt. They're working in the interests of these big businesses rather than the interests of individuals. So that is what we're up against. And again, the good news is Bobby Kennedy suspended his campaign, joined forces with President Trump, got President Trump elected. President Trump honored that alliance, appointed Bobby. Not an easy confirmation process, but we got Dr. Oz in there, and Dr. Oz is doing a great job. We got Brooke Rollins. Again, these are people that are looking at things a different way. And we've got 3 years where we're going to have to win these political arguments. It's all about consumerism. It's about educating the public and having the public demand better products and healthier products. I don't want to do it through government regulation. I want the government to be the arbiter of high integrity science. And then I want the government to inform the citizens. So we have informed consent on things like the COVID injection or other vaccines or other drugs. But I want the government out of the way, and I want consumers being the primary force for the MAHA movement, demanding healthier foods. And if they demand it, the private sector will take care of it. I got a great deal of confidence in the private sector to provide, supply what consumers are demanding. But Tony, again, thank you for all your efforts, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. And, it's such an important point that, the federal agency became captured, the journals, the newspapers. We really need to restore integrity in science. And, we can't have any more corrupt corporate science in this country. And we have to be sure that everybody in the public knows what's happened, that the experts lied to us, that the things that they were certain were true are not in fact true, and that we can do better, and that there are people like you fighting to make sure that's possible, that we're getting radical transparency so that consumers can go out and make better decisions for themselves and, once again, like I said before, become CEOs of their own body, have medical freedom, and make choices that will protect them and their families. So thanks so much for everything you've been doing. And, this is going to be a long fight.
Again, thanks for your efforts. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Next up, we have Sean Spicer. He was the White House press secretary during President Trump's first term. He serves as a captain in the U.S. Navy Reserve. He's also the host of the Sean Spicer Show. the author of 5 books. One of them is his new book that he's going to discuss today. It's called Trump 2.0, the revolution that will permanently transform this country. And here he is. Welcome, Shawn Spicer.
Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate you having me. I'll just surmise this. I mean, first, it's an honor to be with you. There's so many of these people on this call monthly at some of the events that MAHA puts together that I've followed on Instagram, that I've come to learn and know, have given me insight into wellness that I don't think I possibly could have envisioned 2 years ago. When I sat down to write this book, the idea was what's different between Trump 1.0, his first term, and now. And there's 2 big things that I think are important for that. I went down this journey not knowing what I'd find. But the first is the importance of not being sequential. What happens when you have 4 years out of office? And that gets something that Senator Johnson talked about. There's 3 sort of prongs that I lay out in the book: the people, the process, and the policies. And when you have time to stop and think about what you're doing, it's almost like if you've played sports before, you play a team at the first part of the season, and by the end, you kind of know where they go. You know what you should do differently. You know who should be playing in what position. Senator Johnson talked about this. Who are the right people? You think about some of the people that we had in Trump 1. They weren't on board on the agenda. They didn't really buy into what was happening. You look at every one of these positions that now affects our health and wellness: Dr. Oz, Jay Bhattacharya, Marty McCary, Bobby Kennedy and his senior team, Stephanie and everybody involved, Tony on the outside. This is a team that's driving forward. One of the things that the press continues to make a mistake about is they like to say, well, it's a group of loyalists. To be blunt, a dog can be loyal. You can sit in the corner and be loyal. What's different about this group this time in Trump 2.0 is the team that's on the field gets the mission. They are disruptors. They are not sitting back sort of being loyal and just moving the paperwork on from the last administration. They are truly making change happen. I think of myself in the wellness space as a guy who has tried to eat healthy, has tried to do stuff. I've seen nutritionists over the years because I wanted to eat healthier. And they'll tell you things because it says heart healthy on the label. And I thought, okay, I'm doing the right thing. In researching this book, I know for a lot of people my age and older, when they hear grass, they think that you're about to get high. I didn't realize that there's a thing called generally recognized as safe, and that we basically just said, let's throw all this stuff into food because, well, why not? Big food said it's safe, even though there's no science. But we talk about big pharma and big food. We recognize the role of the media. How many of these organizations, when you pick up a DC newsletter, Playbook, Notice, Axios, look how many times it's sponsored by Big Pharma or one of their affiliates. You think reporters aren't stupid? They don't realize where the bread is buttered, where their salaries are getting paid for, what subjects they're not supposed to cover. The enlightenment of what's happened in MAHA is nothing short of extraordinary. And the point that I want to get beyond the book is for people to understand that the understanding of the impact of ultra-processed food, dyes, wellness, is all because of the MAHA movement. It has created an awakening and a level of transparency that just did not exist because the government and the media blocked us from knowing it. I literally thought that I was making good, healthy decisions, 18, 24 months ago, and this movement has done this. And in the last minute that I'll say, and Tony opened this by talking about the midterms and glyphosate, understand this. I cannot, in 30 years of campaigns, think of a movement that has moved the ball further down the field in 1 year than MAHA in any area. None, zero. And so sometimes you get a setback, but don't mistake that for understanding the totality and the context. Many people in the MAHA movement are new to politics. Understand, I am blown away. We have a midterm election coming up. The same fervor that got people out to the polls last time to put President Trump back into office needs to get out there and to understand and explain to people. The most trusted people aren't the media. They are your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers. Explaining to people what has happened because of MAHA is critical. and making sure they understand that we need to keep this team on the field to keep moving the ball down the field, not just the MAHA leaders that I mentioned, but people like Ron Johnson and his colleagues in the Senate and the House, so that Bobby Kennedy has a friend to move legislation forward. So thank you to Tony for giving me this, and I'm honored to be part of this, to see so many of the amazing people that I've admired in this movement, and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, Shawn. And you've really been a great fighter and a disruptor. And this book is a great tribute to the president, to the team that he's built, and to really explore what's possible in the next 3 years. And it's beautifully written. It covers the MAHA movement. It's a must read for anybody who wants to hear what the MAHA team has done so far and what they can do going forward. So thanks so much for writing it. Thanks for coming on, and look forward to continuing to work together.
Thank you, Tony. Available on Amazon now, by the way.
Next up, we have Marla Maples. And you all know who Marla Maples is. She is a speaker, an actress, a passionate advocate for holistic health and spiritual well-being. She's the co-founder of the Global Wellness Forum and leads the Marla Maples Foundation. She's really focused on enriching and elevating global well-being. And above all else, she's a devoted mother to Tiffany Trump and a joyful grandmother to little Alexander, and a tremendous fighter for all of the MAHA causes. So welcome, Marla, for the first time, and hope to have you on many times.
Thank you so much, Tony. Honestly, truly an honor to be with each of you. You're all so important. Every single person here is important. Every single person watching is important. And we have to remember, even if you don't think you have a voice, you do. And energetically, just how you share and create peace and open up dialogues is so, so important for our world. And I just have to say, I am so grateful to be alive during this time. I feel like I was born for this moment in time. I was always a bit unusual as a child growing up in a small town in Georgia, just that I always felt like, do I belong? What am I really here for? And I spent a lot of time just really getting to understand health and wellness and sports and how I could be the best I could be. And that just took me on a journey that brought me into friendships with people like Secretary Kennedy and of course, President Trump, who I met when I was only 20 years old. And I've had long friendships with each of them. And I couldn't be more grateful for the two of them supporting each other, even when the media tries to pull them apart. And we've seen it over and over again. And that's why I just want to urge all of you, everyone listening, to please be patient. Remember, unity first. We've seen so many incredible things happen. We are watching a world and a government that actually cares for your health for first time since I can remember. So as long as we stay really focused on what we believe in, and as everyone else here has said today, just be listening to each other. The people that you know are your dear friends that are on the mission. And I had the honor of being able to meet Cassie Means and being with the team after her day with all the wonderful congressmen that we know. And she was incredible. And I will say, with Cassie and Callie, Dr. Oz and Robert Kennedy, Stephanie Carlson, Stephanie Herodopoulos, we have got a team in place that cares so deeply. And most of them really, truly, do any of them need to be there? No, they're there because they care about humanity, and they've stepped up to this time. And I have so much joy in my heart. And I always keep reminding folks that get a little aggravated, like we watched a lot of friends, of course, even myself, get upset with what came down with glyphosate. And there's so many things that we will continue to come up to divide us. But with patience, perseverance, and open conversations and listening to each other, we can get through this and we can support each other. And we've got an opportunity like never before. So I'm just grateful that, I have a voice with the Global Wellness Forum. I have been a MAHA mom, and I'm a MAHA grandma for so many years. And we want, as a foundation, to help support everything MAHA is doing, everything that Secretary Kennedy is doing in office. And we just love to bring together together communities to help support the efforts and help wake people up to what's really happening around them. So we've gathered now, I think. I like being out of the government, but it sure has been fun watching friends who are in the government. Different set of rules and standards, isn't it? But we just, more than anything, praying for each other, seeing each other lifted up to their highest light. And I believe this is what our group does, is we understand the power of prayer, the power of connectiveness, putting our hearts together around each other, and just believing that, if we get a download for God, it's probably a sign of the way to walk the path. So for me, I couldn't be happier than to know all of you. Some of you just I'm learning more about today, of course, but knowing of you, and so grateful for how you show up in the world. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marla, and such great points. The power of prayer, the power of connection, and the importance of being grateful to be living during this time, and to be just fascinated with what's possible and what can happen next. Because we just don't know. We know that we've lived in a country that was just deeply corrupt, where, like Ron Johnson said, you couldn't trust the science, you couldn't trust the people, you couldn't believe anything that these companies told us. And that now we have this great group of MAHA leaders, and we all just need to stick together and make history and watch what can possibly unfold. So thanks so much for all that you've been doing and for coming on, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Liana Werner-Gray. She is a certified nutritionist and a 3-time New York Times bestselling author. She's had a lot of health problems herself, including a cancerous tumor, chronic fatigue, digestive problems, weight loss with nutrition. So she has figured it out herself. She has fought these battles herself, and is just has encyclopedic knowledge now from this journey that she's taken. So we're so grateful for all the work you've done. So happy to be working with you, and welcome, Liana Gray.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you to everyone here. And Marla, she is the epitome of MAHA. She's so vibrant, healthy looking, and she truly just lives what she preaches. I know, because when we're out eating at a restaurant, we order exactly the same, and people think we are crazy, but I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, and you order the same way, like, okay, where's the fish from? Is it organic? Does it have glyphosate? What are the levels? But thank you so much, Tony, for inviting me on today. So I'm coming live from the Natural Products Expo West in California. So this is the largest natural food and health show in the world, and it happens every March in Anaheim. It's one of my favorite events. They say that when you're here, you have zero problems. It's like Disney World for adults, and especially for health foodies. And as Tony was saying, I hit rock bottom with my health 17 years ago, and there is a natural remedy, a natural cure for everything. So I've just gone down the rabbit hole, and people ask me all day long, what can I do for IBS? What can I do for acne, psoriasis? And so just love being able to share all the natural remedies that are helping people heal from the inside out. And so since I'm at Expo West, if any of you know any cool brands or people that are here, let me know. I'll go visit their booths. I'll check them out. It's really cool to see all the innovations and all the products that are really truly helping to make Americans healthy again, with clean organic foods that do not have crazy ingredients like carcinogens and all the food dyes that we've been working so hard to remove. And this event really is a celebration, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, is celebrating, because we have come so far in MAHA, and we are healthier now as a nation than a year ago. We have made so many amazing changes, and this glyphosate issue, I'm sure a lot of you influencers and other people on here were getting hit up, like saying things like MAHA's a joke, MAHA's being divided, MAHA's a mess, but actually it's not. And we do need to be careful in terms of talking to the press and just showing them, we're not a mess. We're actually uniting and realizing that, we have to come together and just celebrate the wins, and that it is a process. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., sorry, I'm used to saying Bobby Kennedy, but I wanted to say it all professional today. His direct quote was that I will always tell the American people the truth, that pesticides and herbicides are toxic by design. They are engineered to kill living organisms. And when we apply them across millions of acres and allow them into our food system, we do put Americans at risk. Chemical manufacturers have paid tens of billions of dollars to settle cancer claims linked to their products. Unfortunately, our agricultural systems depend heavily on these chemicals. The US represents 4% of the world's population, yet we use roughly 25% of its pesticides. If these inputs disappeared overnight, crop yields would fall, food prices would surge, and the consequence would be disastrous. So these, end quote. So this is a system. This is a system of transformation, so it's not a light switch. And so all of us here at MAHA, we're in this for the long haul, and we're not expecting this quick, instant gratification. So it is a process. We must stay united. We must stay strategic and stay solutions focused. Yes, and on that note, we do have an amazing rally protest led by Vani Hari, the food babe, April 27th. 9 a.m. at the Supreme Court. So we hope that you will all be there and help come and support. That it's the People versus Poison rally. So very excited about that. And lastly, I just wanted to say on Monday, I visited a regenerative organic farm here in California called the Ecology Center. And regenerative organic is booming. It is so positive. So currently there are 65,000 farms that are switching to regenerative organic, going from organic to regenerative organic, and that's 20 million acres. There's 350 brands that are now regenerative organic, and in 2025, there was just 210 that were regenerative organic. So regenerative organic is the future. It's the cleanest way to eat, the least amount of toxins and pesticides in the food, and also it restores the environment, restores the earth too. So very excited for that movement. I'm going to go now. I want to keep it short and sweet. There is a talk in like 20 minutes called Healing the Field of Health, Bridging Divides Around MAHA and the Future of Food. So I'm going to go check it out, see what they're talking about there. We'll report back to you guys on Instagram later. Thank you so much, Tony, for having me. And thank you for everyone at MAHA Action for all that you do.
Yeah, and thanks so much for coming on. Sorry that I got your last name wrong. It's Liana Werner-Gray. Thanks for the help that you've given me personally, and then so many others. But it's a great point that we're not divided, but they want us to be. So, we're very dangerous people for, to those people in this world who are in the business of poisoning the American public. And so, but, we can be friends to many of those same people if they're willing to change their products, to improve their products, to innovate their way out of this system that we've created in this country. So it's possible to lower the toxic load on everybody in the country, and that's what the MAHA goal is. And thanks for your role in doing that, for flying all around the country and doing a great job and helping us in all kinds of ways. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, we have Dr. Mehmet Oz. He is the head of CMS that controls coverage for 160 million people in this country. And he's been working very, very hard to change the system so that it focuses on prevention rather than, treatment, and from, moving from drugs to better nutrition. So thanks so much for all the incredible work you've been doing. And welcome, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
I'm going to start off with this. I just was visited by a cancer center, and those are Greek veggie meatballs. Of course, it pains me as a Turk, Turkish descent to show that to you, but it is true that healthy foods for centuries have kept humans thriving, even in the face of significant environmental adversity and famines and wars and plagues and the like. And the reason I show that image to you is I was visited today by a big cancer center in Florida who, and the folks who visited were physicians, and they were arguing that there was remarkable correlates between fiber intake and survival of immunotherapy for melanomas. Now, this is getting very granular, right? You're talking about a specific kind of cancer, specific kind of therapy, but then a very specific bit of advice. So I asked, what's the timeline for sharing this information with the rest of the public? And they've done a clinical trial that's pretty compelling. And they're telling, like family members about this, but they need to actually finish the clinical trials. And that could take a while, could take 5 years. And so what happens to the 5 years of people who die from melanoma when you don't actually have enough clinical evidence to say you should take fiber? And this is one of the challenges that I remember facing on my show, right? The litmus test for telling people advice is probably what you would tell your family. And with the caveat that you don't have multiple double-blind randomized trials, but these are not pharmaceuticals you're talking about. These are things like intermittent fasting or becoming ketotic or taking more fiber. Fiber, by the way, is a prebiotic. So it feeds the right bacteria in your gut, which is different from taking probiotics, which actually gives you some of the bacteria, but frankly, just a few strains, not there are thousands of strains of bacteria you have in your intestine. And it's all those strains together that play a role. Now, when he said that, it reminded me of a series of discussions I'd had 2 years ago about a pharmaceutical company that were trying to take stool from people who had survived cancer with specific therapies and give them to people who had different bacteria in their colons. And in mice, that actually works. It's remarkably effective. And so the gut biome dramatically impacts on survival rates of some of these tumors, especially with specific kinds of therapy. And I highlight this because if you take it even further, it turns out that giving antibiotics to people within a month or two of taking some of these medications, these immunotherapy, chemotherapeutic agents, affects survival rate because you kill off healthy bacteria that would normally calm your immune system down. And so it can't work with your therapy like it's supposed to. And so you put all this together, you begin to realize how much of the battle for advanced care of cancer revolves around classic MAHA type initiatives. And I thought I'd just put that on your radar today because the real question is, how much do you tell people in the absence of compelling data? If you don't know completely without any question that this approach is going to solve this issue, then do you mention it or not? Let's take Alzheimer's as an example, a problem that is the number one feared issue by older Americans. Now, we have a test now called p-tau217. If given, that test can pretty accurately predict that you might have problems with the pathology of Alzheimer's. You might not get the symptoms, but you'll get the changes in your brain and probably symptoms for that reason within 10 years. And I'm told that 1 in 3 Americans over 65, if they took this p-tau217 test, could figure out that they're at high risk for Alzheimer's. And the question, of course, is what are you going to do about it? We don't have a medication that's so devastatingly effective in removing this risk that you would be able to recommend it to everybody. But it turns out intermittent fasting, again, being ketotic as much as possible. There are other programs as well. Mediterranean diet might be beneficial, but there's some lifestyle impacts like sleep and anxiety management and the like that could be beneficial enough that you'd recommend it population-wide. But we have to get more aggressive as a community, telling people what we would tell our families, that if you have these problems and you're going to take advanced medical care of yourself to get through them, we should be comfortable also telling you things that are softer, like the recipes that I'm showing you, which, by the way, are in a book that they give to patients at this hospital. And the MAHA movement should allow us to educate doctors in their medical education, which, as you know, Secretary Kennedy has been pushing very hard on. Big article today in the papers, again, confirming that although the medical schools are unhappy sometimes, kicking and screaming, they are doing just what he's demanding of them, which is to put nutrition programs in schools. And I'll leave you with one epiphany that I had when I was in medical school. I realized that if I didn't learn it in medical school, I would almost surely disregard it as being irrelevant. Because if it was important, I would have learned it at medical school. So I ran for class president and ultimately student body president in medical school. I won, and my platform idea was to bring nutrition education into our medical school, which we did. And we didn't study, beriberi and kwashiorkor, diseases that are really only present in famine-infested areas of the planet, but actually the problems we face here in America. And I think that's the kind of cultural shift we need to allow what we just discussed to be able to move into the mainstream. Thank you, Tony, for making this possible. Congrats on the success of these MAHA programs.
Thanks. And, you had mentioned melanoma, and my brother died at 59 after a 9-year battle with melanoma. And, he was told that he would die in 6 months. But each year, as he went through this whole process, there were better and better treatments, better drugs, better therapies. So, if he'd been born 5 years sooner, he probably would have died in 6 months. So the idea is that the science is never settled. We can always do a better job. And we should always be questioning the status quo and always think, that the medical books of any generation are going to be littered with errors, that people are going to laugh about what's in the medical books of prior generations. So many of the companies who've had so much power over these years have wanted to just stick with whatever products they have. And they've, have a big investment in doing that. And part of what you're doing and part of what Secretary Kennedy is doing is being open to real innovation, to real progress. And that's such a change. That's something that just hasn't been true over the last generation. So thanks so much for everything that you've done.
God bless.
You too. Next up, we have Zach Lane, and he is a 6th generation Iowan farmer, educator, and businessman. And he's running for governor of Iowa as a Republican. And, Zach's policies focus on helping families and farmers, seeing them from corporate control, corporate corruption, corporate capture. And, he's a real MAHA candidate. We're so proud to be working closely with him. As most of you know, we have very strongly endorsed him. Welcome, Zach Lane. Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thank you, Tony, for having me. And thanks for everybody for joining these calls. First, I just want to say thank you for the support that's come from the MAHA movement. It has been unbelievable to see. We were actually the first candidate ever endorsed by the MAHA Action organization. And just being able to see the outpouring of support from within the state and from around the country has been very humbling. I think I found myself, probably like many of you did over the past week or so, in a place of a bit of discouragement of some of the news that's been coming out. And, I voiced that concern myself, been very direct about that. And I'm running for governor in what is the top agriculture state per capita in the nation. And we're running on a MAHA platform, absolutely. But I wanted to take a minute just to talk about where we are in this battle, where we are in the truth of this battle, and just have that discussion. Because the way I'm talking about this in Iowa, Senator Johnson talked about corporate capture, and I really believe it comes down to just that. We are battling entrenched interests that have captured agencies within our government for a very long time. I was reading a book at one point. It had a letter from Thomas Jefferson in it, and he talked about way back then, he said, I hope we kill in its infancy the aristocracy of our moneyed corporations who are already challenging us to a battle of wills. This is not a new problem. This has been going on for a very long time. And I would just say this, we are in the right. When I'm talking to farmers here, and one of the most humbling experiences to me is my family's been farming in Iowa for over 130 years, is to talk about these issues that candidates have not brought up. Even though we see what's been happening in our state, we have the fastest rate of new cancer in the entire world. We have the second highest cancer incidence in the country. And as I talked to farmers, just last night I was at an event, and after I spoke, one of these men came up to me and said, I've been farming my whole life. I've been using these products. I want to find a path away from these products. Can we talk? And I'm having this happen over and over. And the other thing that's happening with me is because I'm bringing a voice to these people, like my own father who had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after spending his life in the fields, I am finding story after story of people coming up to me talking about their cancer and what's happened to them, or somebody they've lost from cancer, or just hearing stories about people that passed away early at 65 or 70 when their parents lived to be 80 or 85. And I'm trying to help people understand that this is a generational issue and we're losing the wisdom of a generation. And the good news that we have as far as the movement goes is people are waking up to this reality. They truly are. People in my home state are waking up to this. And what the big agriculture companies have done, the big mistake that they have made, is they have already alerted farmers. Farmers understand that they are not on their side. For many years, for decades, these companies have been consolidating their processes in other companies and raising prices on our farmers to the point where they can't afford to farm. The average farmer is losing money on any given year of farming. Just this morning, or just yesterday, two of the largest nitrogen producers in the country pulled their public pricing. They pulled their pricing publicly because They are looking to see what's happening with Iran, but they pulled it at the exact same moment. We know what's happening here with collusion in our markets. We understand, and farmers understand this very, very well. So we are on the right side of history to say that these companies do not care about the financial aspect that our farmers are going through. They're watching and they are overseeing the degradation of our rural communities. It's actively happening. We can see it happening. And so when it comes to these issues like glyphosate, this has been a hot button issue for me as well. We do have good news first to share. The UK just announced that Syngenta is going to stop producing paraquat, one of the most toxic chemicals that's used on farms ever. And they're stopping producing it. That's a great, great piece of progress. But when we look at what's happening right now, whether it's with the Supreme Court, the state legislatures, whether we're looking at the Farm Bill or other measures, big agriculture is going to war to bring immunity for a product that has been harming our farmers and our people for a very long time. Safe products don't need immunity. We know that to be true. And so my message to the people in the MAHA movement is to be vigilant, do not stop, continue the push, because over the last 10 years across America, we've lost 100,000 family farms. During that same time, the top 5 agriculture companies have made $150 billion in profit, and they've lobbied Congress to the tune of $1.5 billion. Who are they lobbying for? It's not the farmer. And so as I'm going out and telling this story of a better way forward, of how we can wean ourselves off of these inputs, we are getting a lot of traction. And I give a lot of credit to the MAHA movement for helping me and encouraging us to continue moving on. So please keep fighting these issues. And we hope you'll follow our campaign, zachlane.com. Help us make Iowa healthy again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Zach. And, so many people say that, that MAHA challenging things, people disagreeing with each other, people saying that we're fighting each other, like 2 or 3 people said. But that disagreement, that dialogue, that debate, that questioning, that's our strength. That's our superpower. That's what's going to make us win. And, it's the openness to ideas that forces people to know the facts and puts them in a position where they can't be lied to, they can't be controlled, and they're actually free. Once again, like Bobby says, they can become CEOs of their own body, and they can force companies to make better products by refusing to buy products that poison all of us. So, you are right. Safe products don't need liability shields. And I hope that message helps you win, because that's going to be good for you, good for the MAHA movement, and good for everybody in your state. So thanks a lot for coming on. Thanks for running. Thanks for standing up. And I really sincerely hope you win and want to help you in any way I can.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Shawn and Dr. Javid. And, they have 5 decades of combined experience in dentistry, dedicating much of their careers to the principles of biological dentistry and its role in addressing chronic disease. Nearly 2 decades back, they expanded their focus to sleep medicine, recognizing that airway obstruction and sleep apnea are critical drivers of systemic illness. So, as a pair, they co-founded Smile Body, which is a center in LA that blends holistic dentistry with integrative medicine and cutting-edge technologies. So happy to have 2 great specialists come on and teach all of us and help us all learn something that I'm sure nobody watching really knows anywhere nearly as well as the 2 of you do. So thanks again for coming on, and welcome.
Thank you for having us on, because we're very passionate about what we do. But this is a message that needs to get out there more, and giving us this platform is much appreciated. And I have to say, I really appreciate being speaking with all of these names that are on this panel today. A lot of people that I look up to, that I've looked up to for many years for the work that you're doing. And I was talking with Senator Johnson, and he was talking about how we are all doing our part in this mission. And one thing that we've been talking a lot about is nutrition, for example, and the glyphosate and how much the foods that we're putting in our body are making us sick. And of course, the medicines that we're putting in our bodies a lot of times are making us sick. And the two things that are supposed to be healing us are causing this chronic health issues. Now, again, and coming at it from every angle, these toxicities that are coming in the body are adding to our toxic burden. And one thing everyone on this panel will probably agree on is that the combined toxic burden of a person is what's causing the chronic health issues, whether it's coming from the toxic foods, the ultra-processed foods, the glyphosate, or the heavy metals, the plastics, and the water, the air that we breathe. There's so many ways this toxic burden is accumulating in our bodies. Well, we are all working to clear it, right? We're working on cleaning our bodies through, of course, detoxing, saunas, all the work Gary Brecka is doing as far as biohacking, all these different work. Yeah, there you go, Gary. We're all trying to clear this toxicity to get healthier. But I have to say, none of them will get you very far if you're living in a moldy home, for example, right? Because every day, if you're going home and you're breathing the toxic mold, you're not going to get healthy. And what if I was to tell you that many times that moldy home is actually your job? And the reality is that the dentistry that we're trained to do coming out of dental school is a lot of times the culprit. And my brother and I have done this ourselves, as how we were trained for years. We also did dentistry that introduced a lot of the toxicity into the body that's contributing to this toxic burden and ultimately chronic health issues. So what we focus on in biological dentistry is reducing this toxic burden, looking at root cause of problems and not just addressing symptoms, and realizing that the mouth-body connection is vast. It's not just blood vessels, nerves, and lymph, but it's also, for example, meridians, the dental meridians. And if you're not familiar with what dental meridians are, these are what Chinese medicine, ancient Chinese medicine, deals with. These pathways, energy pathways, when blocked, cause dysfunction somewhere along the body. And the dentistry that we do in mainstream medicine and mainstream dentistry is a lot of times causing that block in that energy flow, causing us hidden infections, causing heavy metal toxicity, not just from mercury, but all metals. Now, we believe in biological dentistry, we need to remove a lot of, actually all metals from the body, because they're not only causing heavy metal toxicity, causing inflammation in the body, but also attracting actual EMF, what we're trying to block. So there's so many factors of what's being put in the body that we are very choosy on biological dentistry. We want to pick the right materials. So the materials matter. The treatments that are a lot of times done are also contributing to this. Now, for example, you guys have maybe heard about root canals. Hidden root canal infections and hidden bony infections are a lot of times causing inflammation, toxicity, and blocking these energy pathways that we're talking about, and directly causing this burden to keep accumulating. And with everything you do to get healthy, if this burden is constantly accumulating inside your body, it doesn't work. So we believe in a collaboration model, working with people like Dr. Pampa and others that believe in working together to reduce this toxic burden and achieve actually proper health. And we see many, many benefits for our patients that are coming through the office. And I mean, Shawn will give us some examples of this, of patients that we've seen benefit from this mentality.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say again, it's an honor to be with this panel. I mean, I look up to so many people here. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, biodentistry is that we're looking at toxins coming from the mouth, right? Metals, mercury fillings are very toxic, which is not talked about. A lot of hidden infections and root canals, something called cavitations, which are bony infections. You said it all, but I just want to talk about it's like patients I was thinking about. Like we had a patient that came from Arizona She had eczema all over her body for 20 years. And we went in and cleaned out these cavitations for her. And in about a month, all the eczema went away. A gentleman that came from Florida, he had severe brain fog, that early onset dementia was diagnosed. We cleaned out these infections, took out all the toxins out of the mouth. He was a writer, and he started writing again after about 4 or 5 weeks. Innovative thoughts. I mean, we get these emails, and it's incredible. Heart palpitations. We had a patient that was severe heart palpitation for 40 years and couldn't figure out what it was. And after removing these toxins, so we always talk about the head is connected to the body, and that's not what they don't train us in dentistry like that, right? It's just like it's not connected to the body, and whatever materials you put in there doesn't matter, doesn't have an effect on the body. And we're all trying to eat healthy, like I said. We're not to get toxins in our body. I'm biohacking. I follow Gary all the time. I do a lot of stuff that he does, so I appreciate that. So, and I'm doing all this stuff, but the patients come in and they're flying from all over the country to our center. And we had to create a center that wasn't just biological dentistry, like you talked about, was functional medicine. And we put a lot of biohack equipment, some hyperbarics and all that, because it was an IV center, because it was total body health. We couldn't just treat the head and we couldn't treat the body. People are coming in with autoimmune issues and cancers and brain fog and gut issues. So we're going over everything and to see where the root cause of the problem is, which a lot of times is starting from the mouth. So we feel blessed to be part of this, and then whatever we can contribute. That's what I've been practicing for 30 years, biodentistry for the past 15 years when I woke up. And we just want to see whatever we can contribute to be part of this, to get Americans healthy. We want to be part of it.
I want to end off with one really wonderful quote from, Robert Kennedy Jr., which says, "A healthy person has many goals, but a sick person has only one goal." So this is our passion, to actually make a big difference on a global level, and to work together collaboratively. Change this model of silos. Doctors working in silos does not work. We all collaborate together. We make a big impact. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for coming on. And it's clear, and all the people watching this, really get it, that the foods that we put in our body, the meds that we put in our body, all kinds of other things that we put in our body, they can be toxic. And, they can add to a toxic burden that then presents as chronic disease. So we need to get these things out of our bodies, and we need to look at our bodies holistically. And if we're going to end chronic disease, this, as you guys have pointed out, it often starts in the mouth, and that's a good place to really look as a first line of defense. And so, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your ideas. And, we all look forward to learning more. It's a great company, Smile Body. All of the viewers should look you guys up, and hope to have you on more times.
Thank you, Tony, very much.
Next up, we have our regulars, Gary Brecka. As I've said many times, he's the visionary founder of The Ultimate Human. He's a renowned human biologist, a biohacker, a longevity expert, and he travels around the world helping people, going to conferences, giving speeches, and really helping people live healthier, more vital lives. So he's one of the loudest and most successful, most helpful voices in the MAHA movement, and we're very grateful to work closely with him. And thanks a lot for coming on once again.
Yeah, of course. I'm super, super happy to be here. Dr. Ben, Dr. Shawn, big fans of what you guys do. I truly believe that my life was actually saved by a biologic dentist named Dr. Jigar Gandhi up in upstate New York. He found multiple cavitations in my mouth. At the time, I didn't realize the detriments of root canals, but dentistry, and this isn't a slight on your profession at all, is one of the few, if not the only areas of medicine that believes that you can still leave dead tissue in the body, and that you won't have any consequences. And I did an entire podcast on this. You guys should go watch it. It's free. It's up on Spotify. And in that podcast, when they removed my tooth, it's a little gross, but there was a pocket underneath of my tooth that was sort of attached down to the bottom of the root. When we popped that and smeared it on a slide, you could actually see it. We dark field put it on a doctoral microscope in Dr. Gandhi's office, and you could actually see these corkscrew parasites and viral pathogens that were in this pocket of infection. You could even see my macrophages, my white blood cells going after it. And I mean, the light bulb just exploded in my head. So now my whole family's had it done. I'm a huge fan of biologic dentistry, and it could actually save your life, which is phenomenal about, you mentioned these pathways. And I had a crack, which got an infection in my 19th meridian. Dr. Gandhi was able to tell me over the phone, without ever examining, without ever seeing me, that I had left anterior shoulder pain, left lower lobe lung pain, and that my left toe would occasionally go numb. And that absolutely dumbfounded me. And he goes, yeah, that's your 19th tooth meridian, sent me the chart. I said, this sounds like a bunch of voodoo science. Turned out it was absolutely true. 48 hours later, all that pain was gone. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, why we need to be supporting this Bill 51 and what some of the detriments are around glyphosate. I think we all understand that glyphosate is a poison, gets into the body, it calls the immune system, it causes an inflammatory reaction, but it's much bigger than that. You see, when we have become so crack addicted to these poisons in our food supply, what happens is you have an industry that is now dependent on this toxic poison. And in fact, glyphosate is what's called a non-selective herbicide. So essentially kills everything. It inhibits an enzymatic pathway called the EPS-PS pathway. The point is it inhibits this enzymatic activity. And normal crops cannot sustain being sprayed with glyphosate. So it doesn't just act as a non-selective herbicide, it actually would kill these plants. So what we had to do was genetically modify the plants so they would be resistant to glyphosate. Now understand, these aren't modified to increase yield or nutritional value. They're modified for the sole purpose of being resistant to glyphosate. And understanding that the resistance to glyphosate causes a resistance to enzymatic activity. And the process of digestion is an enzymatic process. So food is what we call a metabolite. The body recognizes it, it breaks it down, it can eliminate the waste. When you can't break things down and you can't extract nutrients from them, the food becomes devoid of nutrients. It's just essentially a caloric filler. It also carries with it as this toxic byproduct, this glyphosate, which we refer to as a forever toxin, because we don't have enzymes to break down and eliminate the waste from glyphosate. We also don't have the enzymes now to break down some of these genetically modified foods. So we actually are not getting the nutrition from the food that we intended to get from the wheat, the barley, the hops, the rye, the chickpeas, the lentils, that all of these foods that are most heavily sprayed with glyphosate. And we're also introducing this poison. And I was asked a very interesting question. I've talked about this on MAHA before a few months ago at a stage talk. And someone asked me if I was to put the top 50 experts in the world, longevity, anti-aging, wellness experts in the world in a room and have them agree on just a single theory of aging, just one theory on aging, what would it be? And I said, I think they would all agree on the theory of immunofatigue. Immunofatigue is a slow, progressive overwhelming of the immune system to where the immune system can no longer protect us or police us because it's involved in so many low-grade fights. And that's why this is such an important fight for us, because we have to restore the nutritional value of our food, which was destroyed when we genetically modified it. We have to stop the delivery system for toxic poisons that the body cannot eliminate the waste from, which builds up, calls the immune system, causes these inflammatory reactions. I do not believe, and I'm 29 seconds over my time, so I'll only go for another 30 seconds. I do not believe that 85% of all autoimmune disease is idiopathic, meaning that it is of unknown origin. I believe the origin is known. It is a toxic origin. And as toxicity builds up in the body, you have autoimmune deficiency. You have autoimmune reactions. The body just doesn't wake up one day and the immune system just randomly start to attack you. You didn't get Crohn's disease because your immune system randomly decided to attack the colon, or Sjogren's because it randomly decided to attack the lacrimal gland of the eye. You don't have Hashimoto's because one day you just woke up and it started to attack the thyroid gland. In many cases, it is this mold, mycotoxin, parasite, virus, heavy metal. It are these toxic elements that enter our bodies and call the immune system to that site and start start this dysfunctional process. So really important to support this House bill and really important for us to continue the fight on glyphosate. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Gary. And, it's such a great point that we're sick for specific reasons. And, as you started with, one of the places you can check, you can learn more is in your mouth and your teeth, or in things like, methylation. We can take steps, we can learn more, and these things can change all of our lives. And so, clearly we have to be careful about what we put into our bodies. And, maybe we can't take exposure to things like glyphosate out of our lives. It's literally now in everything. But with labeling, with transparency, with better laws, with no liability shields, we can do better and we can be healthier. And, and the work you're doing and the work of all the people on this show, all the people on it, all the people watching it, is going to lead us to happier, healthier lives. And that's the goal. That's what we all want. So thank you for the incredible work you've been doing. Thanks for coming on again, and we'll see you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Tony.
Next up, we have Russell Brand, and he's been writing just an incredible book. And this is a book that is going to change the way millions of people see the world. It's going to change so much for you. It's just an earth-shattering book. But I'm not going to tell you what the title is yet. I'm not going to tell you anything more. You're going to have to wait to find out. But, Russell Brand's next book is a book that you should read and that I'm going to tell you when it's ready and when I can tell you more. So welcome, Russell Brand.
Thank you once again, Tony, for finding this. I'm very pleased with this book, as a matter of fact. It's the best thing that I've ever written, I hope, I pray. And it's really a sincere endeavor. And I was mindful of you when I was writing it, obviously, because you're the publisher. So there's no point casting you out of my mind, because ultimately you've got to fund this mayhem. And I suppose where it becomes relevant today, when we're talking about pesticide immunity, liability shields, seemingly intractable and irreducible and unavoidable corruption, is there can be no certainty. I read recently, the reason there's no social harmony is because there is no melody. People aren't singing a tune. No one knows what it is we're supposed to be doing. Whether it's these recent military escalations in the Middle East, or the peculiar spectacle of watching the Clintons, both of them, Bill and Hillary. Sadly, not that White House cat, Socks. Socks the cat, I would like to see appear before some sort of congressional hearing at some point. I bet that cat's going to crop up in the Epstein files at some point. What was going on in its litter tray is what I'd like to know. Well, even when we're looking at misadventure in the Middle East, or when we're looking at the Epstein files and the ongoing ramifications, what we're really being exposed to is the impossibility of a reliable moral center when it comes to earthly power. And I suppose it seemed like such a radical proposition that Trump would again be in office. And I think all of us felt like, oh, well, I mean, this guy, his pathology, his nature, his manner is so unique, peculiar, and particular. He's a person that, whatever you think about him, whether you like him or not, he's not what we've been used to in the political space, these well-groomed, precisely Clinton-esque and post-Clinton politicians, media masters and manipulators. Their era, I fancy, may be at an end. I don't think we're going to see any more of these Trudeau politicians, these Macron politicians, these politicians that are clearly globalist, imperialist stooges. Because whilst there are evident and obvious differences between political figures like Secretary Kennedy and Donald Trump, what one might say they share is a kind of visceral authenticity. And it's precisely this authenticity that new media demands. The days where staged events could limitlessly succeed are over. The pandemic period has left us with so many questions and so many doubts, so skeptical about the nature of power. The only authority that I would be willing to yield to, or even contemplate trusting, is authority derived from God, the authority of Christ Jesus. Outside of that, all I know, all my life has shown me, is that people are flawed and fallible. Watch those haughty, supercilious Clintons participating in a hearing, and you'll see they don't believe that they should be there. Hillary Clinton, so full of bluster, and in fact, a kind of fanged rage that she's even being asked to answer questions about Pizzagate and Epstein. But it's a matter of public record that she participated in the Russiagate scandal. She funded the false Steele dossier that made erroneous, false, illegal claims about Trump. She similarly was, I would say, if not condemned, became a figure of derision and suspicion as a result of Assange's WikiLeaks revelations. And here we are again on the precipice of another war. Here we are again trying to unpack semantic riddles like preemptive strikes. And I feel that if politics doesn't start to become something tenable and basic, not to be reductive, like eat real food, like eat food grown and reared in the region you're in, we're all in serious trouble. If we don't return to values like community and connection, authenticity, integrity, true participatory direct democracy, we are in real serious trouble. I think we're not far away from events where mass authoritarianism will be brought to the forefront, looking for ways to legitimize locking people in their homes. And I don't believe anymore that any human power is going to relieve us of our dilemma. I think human beings have shown the extent of our shared capacity and been found dreadfully wanting. And I think it's time for us to try something that, as G.K. Chesterton said, Christianity has not been tried and found wanting. It's been tried and found difficult and put aside. It's time to return to Christ. All else will resolve when we return to him, when we repent, turn away from this fallen world controlled by dark, mysterious, flat-out evil forces, and to the source of all light and the source of all love. Thankfully, this is an option and an opportunity, and indeed precisely the subject of the book that Tony has been kind enough to support and publish, and I look forward to talking about here, because certainly it aligns with the MAHA movement, because being healthy is a spiritual matter. Thanks for your time and for your ongoing trust and patience, Tony, and all of you on this call. You great, intrepid and brilliant people. I'm very grateful to be a participant with you in this ongoing movement. Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks for coming on once again. And it's, it's something that I think about, and it's that, there really is no moral center, sort of like that quote from a poem, that the center cannot hold, that mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, that there's just no clarity. And, so prior presidents were, like you said, they were polished, they were media masters or media monsters, manipulators. And President Trump is brash, authoritative, iconoclastic. But, he's put together this team that questions everything. That's a group of folk heroes fighting corruption. And, so many people say that they're dangerous. And, the point is that they're dangerous to a system that's failed the American public. And you may well be right that people need to read your book and learn about a different kind of moral clarity in order to really lead healthy and happy lives. So we're going to talk much more about that book when it's done and when it's ready. And thanks again for coming on and giving us your wise words.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's W.B. Yeats, that poem. What beast is slouching towards Bethlehem to be born? It's called The Second Coming. It's a great masterpiece. And it's got a falconer in it, and Bobby Kennedy. What a keen falconer he is.
The falcon cannot hear the falconer.
Praise the Lord. Thanks.
Yes.
Love you, mate.
Thank you. So thanks to all of you for joining us for yet another great episode of the MAHA Media Hub, and for tuning in week after week. And as always, I'm going to thank all of our speakers for coming on, for their insights, their dedication, all of the people, all of you watching this, I recognize the level of dedication. And, I'm just going to keep coming back to it. Many of us disagree. We have different ideas. We have different strategies. We play different roles, but we're part of an important team that I think can change the world. So I hope we can all find ways, even with our differences, to kind of come together, fight together, and make this world healthier. And, I think that's possible. So, then I'm going to go back to our normal sort of statement, but that, we are here to help the Trump administration, to back this incredible team that they put together, that Donald Trump has put together. And we have really powerful tools at our fingertips. We have almost 200,000 subscribers on Substack for the MAHA report. Please read the MAHA report on Substack. It is terrific. It's getting better and better, and it was already really great. Then we've got the MAHA Institute roundtables, just a ton of them. These are really authoritative meetings with great speakers, really just making great progress there. I'm so proud of the work that they're doing. And once a year, we're going to have the historic MAHA Summit. We're just starting to plan for it. Last year, we just had a dream team of people at that summit. Then we've got the legislative tracker. We've got MAHA films, and Jeff Hayes has just come out with another just spectacular MAHA film. We have MAHA books. We have MAHA parties. We have 2 million MAHA warriors, and we send out to that list, and it's growing and growing. We have thousands of influencers with millions of followers. We have thousands and thousands of volunteers, and we're always looking for more volunteers. This is a revolution, and it's going to take each and every one of us to win it. So we're going to harness every bit of the power we have. We're going to try to coordinate in any way we can with cabinet members, with every branch of government, to support and be a powerful resource to the Trump administration going into the midterms. The midterms are just so important. We need Bobby to be in a position where he can get the job done, not be dragged into, boring, sad congressional hearings where, somebody like him who's really trying to stand up to some of the most powerful and evil people on the planet, gets pushed down, has his time wasted. So this country overwhelmingly wants the MAHA movement to succeed. And we see that in all kinds of pollings. So, following this call, you're going to get a long, comprehensive email that's going to give you clips from the show, that's going to give you action steps you can take. So please contact your representatives, ask them to support Amendment 51 in the House Farm Bill. That's really critical. And we're just going to watch closely and, send out things that make what's happening in all areas transparent so that we can all do a better job. And then, call your senators and request that they vote to confirm Casey Means as the next Surgeon General. She's going to be fantastic. And, she is going to be do a job that's going to make us all proud. So go to our website. It's mahaaction.com. Subscribe to our Substack. Read that MAHA report. I just want to come back to it. They're doing a great job. Follow us on social media. That whole team is just spectacular, putting out things that are getting millions and millions and millions of views. And let's all just work together to make this country as healthy as it can possibly be. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you all hopefully next week.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
There's a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.